Ahmad, my friend, how many times do I have to tell you? Paul didn't make up the idea of Jesus' death and atonement out of thin air. It's right there in the scriptures. Have you ever read Daniel 9, big head?
Oh, come on, John. There's no way a prophet like Jesus would die such a horrible death. You are a hater of Jesus. And Paul, he's the one who cooked up this whole crucifixion story. I'm telling you, it's all part of his master plan to mess with Jesus' teachings. You lack knowledge.
Master plan. Ahmad, Paul's not a villain from an action movie. Listen, Daniel 9:26 says, after the 62 sevens, the Anointed One will be put to death and will have nothing. That's a direct prophecy about the Messiah, Jesus, dying. It's not Paul's idea, it's God's plan. Paul didn't write Book of Daniel, that was there before Paul was born.
Oh, you mean that? You're really reaching now. Even if Daniel wasn't written by Paul, that Anointed One doesn't have to mean Jesus, and even if it did, Daniel didn't say anything about atonement. He was probably talking about some Jewish king or something.
But the prophecy isn't just about any old king, Ahmad. The word, Anointed One, Mashiach, is the same word used for the Messiah. You can't just brush that off like yesterday's crumbs. And Daniel didn't stop there. He said the Messiah would be put to death. A violent death. Why would a political king be put to death like that? Without even claiming a kingdom. You are not making a good point here.
Okay, fine. Maybe there's a death in there somewhere while you say I am making no point. But what's that got to do with Paul's story of atonement? I thought you Christians believed Jesus died for everyone's sins. Where's that in Daniel?
Now I know you know nothing, but I'm glad you asked. You've got Daniel 9:24 right before that, saying, 70 sevens are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness. That's talking about the atonement of sins. Ahmad, Jesus' death was to bring an end to sin and offer forgiveness.
Oh come on, John. First, the Quran says Jesus didn't even die. God rescued him. Secondly, even if he did die, no prophet would die for the sins of the world. Where's the justice in that? God is merciful enough to forgive sins without needing someone to be nailed to a stake.
Ahmad, you keep shifting goalpost, buddy. Justice and mercy go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Sin deserves a penalty, and God's justice demands it. But here's the kicker, God's mercy provided the payment himself through Jesus. That's the whole point of atonement.
But, John, you are making God sound like he's playing a weird game with himself. If he wants to forgive, why not just forgive?
Because, Ahmad, God's justice requires a payment for sin. It's like this, imagine you stole my favorite kebab. If I just said, forget it, you'd get away with it scot-free. But if I paid for another kebab myself, I'm showing mercy to you while still covering the cost. That's what Jesus did.
I still think Paul messed up the message. What happened to following the law?
Paul didn't toss the law in the bin, Ahmad. He just explained it in light of Jesus' sacrifice. The law points us to our need for grace, and Paul understood that. Jesus said himself that he came to fulfill the law, not abolish it.
I don't know, John. You Christians are really obsessed with supposed death of Jesus.
Well, what can I say? If someone dies for you, you don't just shrug it off. Anyway, let's grab some tea and talk about how Paul didn't invent chai either.